not be distracted by the paradigms or the constructs of the Piscean priesthood that are still operatively in power, but they're being dismantled on multiple levels. And so again, Christian black codes, which are really the Constantinopolitan creed operations hiding behind the name Christianity that have been operating at North America. So being cognizant of that gives one the opportunity not to waste your energy on fake arguments like we've been telling people for years. Don't get caught up in the fake race argument that has been promoted, particularly since the adaptation by the priesthood of the Carlos Linnaeus and Blumenbach psychosis of the phenotype constructs to divide humanity and also to hide some of the reality of the hybrid origins of the what we would call albions. And that doesn't mean all of them. It just means from among them, you have many of the dark priesthood who have been using dark magic to conquer the world, and it's actually been holding humanity back. Many of their energies and many of their platforms are being removed in order to liberate humanity. And this thanks goes out to many of the humans at Midgard and with some outside help. Because remember, the rule in this particular solar system, and my note is that fundamental rule is operative universally, is that for the most part, we have no interference without our free will to it or without asking. We've been allowed to evolve for the most part on our own. However, we have had some what you would call negative interjections that have taken place that have caused problems for everyone. So the closer we get to the principle of love, and the more we're willing to forgive ourselves honestly, and usually, and then really start using our divine mind and trusting our intuitive mind, much of the cure will come from yourselves, really. You know, we're looking for this outside remedy, and it's not exactly like you're getting some help, but it ain't exactly like that. It's only influence to get you to simply grow and come out of your shells. That's us. So let's go into the Christian Black Codes of 1724 that have been adopted into the corporate states thereafter, and particularly around the middle 1800s and enforced. And this has much to do with the present time political parties that have been operating at Midgard across the planet. So most people, when they're thinking about the Republican Party and the Democratic Party operating at North America, they're thinking, for the most part, that those jurisdictional operations are limited to North America. Well, let me tell you, they're not, and they weren't. They just come under different names from around the world, and they have entrenched themselves on the planet, and they have been causing quite a few problems that are being addressed. Don't think that they are not. However, the more cognizant you are of what's going on, the more capable you are of making discernment and separating the wheat from the chaff. Christian Black Codes, 1724. Now, the Union Colony States, which you know as the United States, which is their private corporation of the Pope of Rome, that has been promoted falsely as the country for a couple hundred years, actually. It's bankrupt. So let's put that on the table already, so you comprehend what's going on, and even many of the activities that are coming from the persons who are claiming to be on the board of directors, like the Congress and the Senate for that corporation, which are really board of directors for that dead corporate entity, which is really an extension of the Spanish Inquisition, of unum sanctum and doctrine of discovery exercises. So the Union Colony of States award their agent organizations, that's the corporate entities, with the release of tithe tax exemption status that you know of as the IRS's 501c3. And the question to you all, one is this: how and where does the foreign people, hybrid Europeans, and their private corporate government derive power and authority to tax Aboriginal and indigenous natural peoples of the land, Moors? And where did the colonial state persons derive their authority to determine tax or to deny taxation or on or over the Aboriginal and indigenous Moors of North America? And the taxing of the Aboriginal indigenous peoples, the Moors, is certainly not written in their constitution adopted from Anansi Confederation, nor from the treaties between Morocco, Great Britain, and the U.S. corporation operations of trade. Now, who should pay taxes to Caesar? But those who belong to Caesar. And why should any organization receive tax-exempt status for their assistance in your enslavement? And our people, the Moors, who are labeled black, Negro, colored, etc., will never see the light of freedom, never see the light of liberty, will never see the light of justice if they're not made aware of or do not know the system that's being used against them, known as the CBCs. The CBCs is the Christian Black Codes. Now, the use of this knowledge for the good, so use it for the good, and not for bitterness, not for anger, but for knowledge and for comprehending the political structures, the political institutions, and the agencies so that you can help intelligently dismantle them. So use this knowledge for the good, study intensively, and teach the true history and Moorish nationality to your children at all costs. And the institutions upon which the masses are depending will collapse of their own corruption and rot. And we must prepare our people for the radical social and economic changes in the world politics which will and must come. And there is no way out. And you must take an active part in your own nation's Moorish affairs and quest for liberty to freedom's door. Exposing the well-kept secret ordinance system of the United States of America and the U.S. corporation jurisdictions, known among all Masons, all Eastern Stars, all government heads, all shakuns, all sheiks, all rabbis, all bishops of the Bishopric of Rome as the Christian Black Codes for Social Engineering at North America, 1724. Appendix, March, 1724. Black Codes, Article 1. Decrees the expulsion of the Jews from the colony. 2. Makes it imperative on masters to impart religious instruction to their slaves. 3. Permits the exercise of the Roman Catholic Creed only. Every other mode of worship is prohibited. Article 4. Negroes placed under the direction or supervision of any other person than a Catholic are liable to confiscation. 5. Sundays and holidays are to be strictly observed. All Negroes found at work on these days are to be confiscated. Article 6. We forbid our white subjects of both sexes to marry with the blacks under penalty of being fined and subjected to some other arbitrary punishment. We forbid all curates, priests, or missionaries of our secular and regular clergy, and even our chaplains in our Navy, to sanction such marriages. We also forbid all our white subjects and even the manumitted or freeborn blacks to live in a state of concubinage with slaves. And should there be any issue from this kind of intercourse, it is our will that the person so offending and the master of the slave shall pay each a fine of 300 lire. And should said issue be the result of concubinage of the master his slave, the said master shall not only pay the fine, but be deprived of the slave and of the children, who shall be adjudged to the hospital of the locality. And said slave shall be forever incapable of being set free. But shall this illicit intercourse have existed between a free black and his slave, when said slave, according to the forms prescribed by the church, said slave shall be thereby set free, and the children shall become free and legitimate. And in such a case, there shall be no application of the penalties mentioned in the present article. Number 7, the ceremonies and forms prescribed by the Ordinance of Blois and by the Edict of 1691, for marriage shall be observed both with regard to free persons and slaves. But the consent of the father and mother of the slave is not necessary. That of the master shall be the only one required. 8. We forbid all curates to process or to effect marriages between slaves without the proof of the consent of their master. And we also forbid all masters to force their slaves into marriages against their wills. 9. Children issued from the marriage of slaves shall follow the conditions of their parents, and shall belong to the master of the wife and not of the husband, if the husband and the wife have different masters. Article 10. If the husband be a slave and the wife be a free woman, it is our will that their children, of whatever sex they be, shall share the condition of their mother, and be as free as she, notwithstanding the servitude of their father. And if their father be free and the mother a slave, then the children shall all be slaves. Article 11. Masters shall have their Christian slaves buried in consecrated ground. Article 12. We forbid slaves to carry offensive weapons or heavy sticks under penalty of being whipped and of having said weapons confiscated for the benefit of the person seizing the same. An exception is made in favor of those slaves who are hunting or are shooting for their masters and who carry with them a written permission to that effect, or are being designated by some known mark or badge. That's up to 12. Now you can understand where the gun codes come from, that they're enforced in targeted communities. You understand why you must go by de facto operations to the corporate state and get a marriage license to marry. You understand why the members of the Roman Curia, of the Circle Church and Chancery, etc., the Bar Association, have power over the estates of these people, and why all divorces must be litigated by the corporate state, which is representative of all manumitted persons, which does not mean free, it means transfer of jurisdictional authority. So our people, under the guise of the so-called manumission of freeborn blacks, all these tags that Chester thought they were freed in 1865, and the jurisdiction of their estates and their children and their offspring and their condition and all inheritabilities were transferred to the Congress for the United States Corporation Company. And you can comprehend de facto operations since 1861, where they overthrow the republic under the guise of helping the people, and they set a seat for the Roman goddess Columbia in 10 square miles off the area that you would call Mary's land and Virgin land, and this is where you get the symbolism of Virgin Mary, and then they take on the power of Horus or the eye, etc. And this is where you see them traditionally imitating themselves as ancient Hikupta or Kupti, or they'll say ancient Egypt, and then they blacken their eye and claim to be the sovereign divine rulers, except they're using all dark magic. So everything that they're doing is both what you would call projection. Their whole life is puppetry, projecting puppetry, perpetration of frauds, pretending to be someone they're not, and all people they deal with, they do it all in what you call the death cult, or what you call the dead. So everything they deal with is a corpse, and all instrumentalities, institutions that they create are corpses or the dead or corporations, etc. Which is also why even when they communicate with the living, they will do their names or the designation in all capital letters, meaning they are the dead. And of course, because they are vampires, they draw all of your essence by virtue of your energy output, like a battery, and they will call it labor, and then they will tax it and make claim on it. And this is what the tithe is to Rome, that you've been knowing as the tax coming from the Inquisition revenue services that you're told is the IRS, because you thought the Inquisition ended a long time ago. No, it didn't. The Inquisition was institutionalized and is known as the U.S. corporation jurisdiction. However, that platform and all the agencies supporting of it, which have been empowering and poisoning the earth, poisoning the water, poisoning the land, killing the people, genociding the people, disrespecting and subduing the matriarchs or womanhood, knocking the women out of all positions of spiritual power to make sure that she does not go to her intuitive mind or trust herself, and therefore help to destroy her own families, all come from the Christian Black Codes, from the Franciscan Brotherhood of the 12, what you call families of Rome, hybriding and pretending to be Al-Moroccans, and from the north have been conquering the world. And this is an essence of the Christian Black Codes. So you understand why they want the guns from the people. There you go, it's Christian Black Codes. You see why they kick doors in and steal people's children, and they do pedophilia, etc., because the popes of Rome have claimed the children as their own under their Christian Black Codes. And of course, they take the people out of their pedigree, call them Negro, Black, and Colored, in order to remove their obligations to the treaties and constitutional principles, etc. The trick is to get our people and those among us who they assign as so-called leader guys to promote what is known as the Black Codes paradigm, and tell the people that is honorable African spiritual culture. And our people have grasped it and lost their birthright. Christian Black Code 1724. Constantinian Order of Rome, Roman Curia, and all their corporate energy operatives, etc. However, it's being dismantled. So if you see, and as you see the institutions, particularly operating at North America and being reflected around the world, because they're seated all around the world, being dismantled, don't cry. Use your intelligent mind and come together. Start loving one another, help one another, understand those dismantlements are purposeful for the ultimate good and liberation of humanity. Any questions, Dr. Nari?
Yeah, I'm trying to go through it. There was someone who mentioned, here, mix this, that the Vietnam War was, let's see that. The Vietnam War was started to get rid of the Buddhists. It didn't work. That when the Vietnamese saw the melanated soldiers, they thought that they were the gods that returned to help them.
Well, that's why a lot of them have helped. For those of you whose parents, uncles, and others who have had some experience with people from that era of time, may have delivered this message to you, coming from some of the brothers in Vietnam and Cambodia, etc. Brother, what are you doing here? How about that?
Mhm.
Well, it's true. Because these people don't know. They think that because these different tribes of Naga around the world think that they're not their own family. You can take many of these Asiatics from around the world and put them in our communities and dress them just like we dress according to the fads, and you wouldn't know too much the difference. Not really. You'd be surprised how much we're like.
I saw something with them singing, and if you didn't see who was singing, it was gospel, but you would have thought it was a
Yes.
Pentecostal church here, and they were Asians, what we would call Asians. Here's a question: how do we, from Pink Illuminates, All Rights Reserved, how do we actively enforce Aboriginal title and unity by territorial positions? Moors, indigenous people of Canaan land, have not been fully successful against the British Crown, according to my knowledge.
Oh, well, true. Well, you see what's happening